All right, welcome to my Wednesday night Chats with Dad live stream. I am King Smith, that is my legal name, and thanks for tuning in. If you are tuning in on the live streaming platforms, this is going on live. For those of you who will be listening on podcasts, this will be on all major podcasting platforms. Just look for the actual King Smith. Now, today I am having a chat with someone who I've became to know pretty well over the last couple of years. It's almost been, it hadn't quite been a decade yet. If you talk with him long enough, you'll feel like it has been that long. But this guy I met through a program called Warriors to Workforce. He is an Army veteran. He was in Airborne, which we'll forgive him for joining the Army. Uh, he became a dad after me, right? And his journey into fatherhood and his story of kind of how he got there is very unique, in my opinion, very interesting. And I'm glad that he was able to come on and talk about life with me. So, without further ado, let's bring this pretty face in.
Hi.
Hey, what's up? I see you got Michael down there, but in parentheses, CQ. So I'm just going to call you CQ throughout the rest of this. How does that sound?
That works for me.
Well, hey, man,
King.
first of all, thanks for joining me. I was glad that you said yes. Tried to get you on last week, but some scheduling conflicts happened. But here we are, man.
I'm happy to be here.
All right. Now, CQ. Um, let's just dive right into it. You are now currently a father, right? A father of one.
I am.
And you have a little boy. His name's Logan Hunter. Me knowing you, right? Because I know you. How did you get the name Logan Hunter? I've asked you this before, but it just hasn't registered, man, in my brain.
Yeah, Logan Hunter. Hunter being his middle name, not his last name. That'd be weird. Uh, no, it's so funny. Um, Me and my wife were so sure we were gonna have a girl. So sure, so sure. Before we found out it was a boy, that we had like the girl name picked out long before we had the boy name picked out. And we honestly, right up until the last couple of months, really just once we found out it was going to be a boy, and then like we were just, I don't know, we were so locked into the girl name that we were spending for months and months and months trying to find a name. And I remember at one point we had a list of like, I don't know, 50 names. And it just over the course of the pregnancy, it kind of whittled down and whittled down and whittled down. Um, Funny enough, Hunter was kind of my first choice. I liked Hunter as a name.
It's a
And
strong name.
yeah, and obviously people see my background. They know me. They think Logan, because of Wolverine, and that was my like, oh my God, I need to have that name. And it wasn't actually. My wife was loved the name Logan. And she's not the big comic book nerd that I am. So obviously internally I was like, all right, I'm kind of cool with that. That's kind of a dope name. I like that. But yeah, so we just I don't know, man. We for a while it was actually gonna be Hunter Logan CQ. And at the last minute when he was born, we just both kind of looked at him and was like Logan Hunter. Logan Hunter works. And Yeah, that's how we got the name, man.
All
Stupid
right.
story.
Hey, but it's a story nonetheless. Now, taking a look at you, right? If I were to try to guess your background, not knowing you, I'd be way off. Give me a little bit of your background as far as your ethnicity and also your wife's ethnicity as well to provide some reference for future
Sure.
conversation.
Sure. So I was born in New York City, uh, which sneaks out. You hear the accent once in a while when you hear me say coffee or water. Obviously I traveled the world and then being in the army and my like the accents kind of comes and goes depending on who the people I'm around. Um, but ethnicity wise, my family comes from Puerto Rico. And I grew up in a Spanish household. And so although I'm not fluent as I'd like to be, I can understand very clearly and speak. moderately Spanish, and my wife is from El Salvador. I met her here, but she had just come from El Salvador. So she, spent the first 20 plus odd years in grew up in El Salvador, and so she's my son is kind of I don't know, he's a 1.5 first generation American, like because it's mom's wasn't born American, but dad was. So I don't know what that makes him, but yeah. So I didn't grow up on the island of Puerto Rico, but my parents did, and obviously my grandparents and whatnot. So I'm a first generation American, and my wife is not. I don't know. I don't know how that works. The math adds out to that, but he's a 1.5 generation, I guess. I don't know.
All right, all right. Does your son speak both languages?
Primarily English, but he does understand Spanish. We have my wife who speaks to him, and years ago when he was first born, we had a nanny to help out the first year or two, and she spoke Spanish to him. And my wife's sister is staying with us now, and so she speaks Spanish to him. So he can do, obviously he typically leans towards English, but like he can tell you all the colors, and he can, tell you simple words and phrases and things like that in Spanish. And we're trying to raise him so that he can be as fluent as possible in Spanish, because I think being bilingual is a it's a great skill to have and a great trait to have. And I wish at a younger age I had put more focus into my Spanish studies, and could be a lot better now.
Okay. Let's go back, man. In your family, do you have a close relationship with your father?
No, no, I don't.
Mm,
I was so going all the way back. My parents were teenagers when they had me.
okay.
It was a summer fling. I think they met at like some type of summer camp or something like that. I think my mom got pregnant with me when she was 17, and so was a teenage mom. And I think she just graduated high school by the time I was born. Um, and my dad exited the picture soon after that. So they were never married. I think in my childhood, I might have seen him over the first couple of years of my life. I might have seen him 3 or 4 times. Like he was there, he was there at the baby stage, and they split soon after that. And so he was kind of sporadic's not even the word of how he was in my life. And so I really grew up not knowing him. I only can remember maybe twice seeing him in my childhood. There was an attempt to connect with him much later in my life, which did not go well. But needless to say, no, I didn't have a very good role model and father figure in my life. My mom dated a couple guys over the course of my young adulthood and childhood and teenagehood, and um, eventually did get married. I might have been 12 or 13. She got married to a guy, and he had a pre-built family. So I had a stepdad for literally a couple, it might have been 2 or 3 years, because then I kind of skipped home and went off on my own to find myself at a young age. But yeah, to answer the question, no, dad wasn't really involved in the picture.
All right. So hearing that, right? Hearing that, you said that you skipped out around 15, 16. Was it because you did not have a good positive male figure that was there? Like, what was your observation of all of that? Or was it you being, I'm rebellious, I'm out?
It might have been column A, column B kind of thing. It was tough. My mom really did the best that she could. Um, I was a very strong-willed, just stern, kind of like hard-headed kid. Always ran with the wrong crowd. I didn't have a good father figure. I didn't have a good role model in my life. I had an uncle who was kind of around sometimes. But yeah, I didn't have that steady, person in my life. From my mom's working her ass off to support us. But we moved like every 6 months. So I was changing schools, and um, it was a tough childhood. We grew up a lot of parts of the ghetto in New York City and Spanish Harlem, and bouncing around, and it wasn't easy. But she did the best she could, and I think that I found early on that uh the only attention I could get was negative attention.
Mm,
So, it was an issue of, if I did well, great. nobody batted an eye. But if I acted a fool, I was the class clown, I did stupid shit, then all of a sudden, yeah, I get my ass whooped. But I got the attention, and so that kind of uh, led me down a bad path and running with the wrong crowds and doing things I obviously shouldn't have done, and getting kicked out of a bunch of schools. And eventually it got to a point, I was about 16, and I was like, you know what, I can handle myself. And I kind of went off and got into some trouble, and got offered an opportunity to uh, get shipped away to this school for delinquent youths. But I saw it as a way out. I didn't like my situation, and I had options, and I chose the one that took me out of the city, out of my family, out of the area, and where I could go kind of do my own thing. And so yeah, from 16 to 18, I was in this kind of school that you're kind of living on your own, but there is a little bit of supervision. It's like I don't know, man, it's like kind of like a halfway house for teenage kids. I don't know, it's weird.
Hmm.
But yeah, I was on my own. I started cooking for myself. I got a job while I was schooling, and I grew up fast. I grew up real fast.
So, all right. At that, and I'm just doing air quotes, halfway house. I don't know, we boarding, like, I don't know. It sounds like a boarding school, sounds like a halfway house, but it
Yeah.
sounds like a very positive program. Now, were were was there positive older male influences that were there during that time period?
There were staff. I mean, there were staff. There were guys on the staff that definitely tried to take me under their wing and stuff. I did not do well with the funny thing is I grew up really around women. I grew up under my mom, my grandmother, my aunt was really big in my life for a long time, and all my mom's friends. And so I, from a young age, I was actually way more comfortable with women, and I seemed to not get along with other guys. And so I see what you're saying, that was there a male role model for me there, and there kind of was, but I always kind of kept people at a distance. Who the people that really kind of broke through to me were a couple of teachers that I had that were women, and they would just sit and talk to me, and like, wow, why are you doing these things? Why are you acting this way? Why are you, feeding off this kind of energy, and doing this, and help me channel a lot of the frustration and anger and emotions that I was feeling. And I'd never thought of it in a million years, but they pushed me into the drama program. So I started getting into theater and was doing musicals. Yeah, so I could sing and dance and perform. Got into the comedies, got into the computers and got into sports. I started playing football. And it was really these women that sat me down and kind of helped me channel the energy, channel the rage, channel the creativity and the emotion into more positive outlets. And my last couple of years, I did really well. I ended up graduating like valedictorian of my graduating class, and or tied with this other girl, but whatever. I call it. I won the valedictorian. She kissed ass, whatever. But yeah, so I was very fortunate that these women kind of helped set me on a good path, and then obviously right after I graduated is kind of when I joined the army.
All right. Well, first of all, man, I would love if you were in the social media era and there were tapes of you singing or dancing or doing something. If anybody out there has this footage, my email is on my YouTube page. Please send that to me.
There's some VHSs out there. I know for a fact. My school has like a Facebook group, like most people do, and not too long ago we were talking about some of the performances, and somebody was like, "Oh, I have it on tape," and I was like, "Oh God, burn it, burn it, burn it now." But it's like in a storage closet somewhere and buried under stuff. But I have the one of these days I'll show you, man. I have the pamphlets, the little things you give out during the
Mhm.
performances, and I have it. Like I would always, even as a young kid, man, I love signatures. I would always have the cast, we'd all sign it, and so I kept these little pamphlets with like all my cast. You never know, if somebody from my school became famous, the next whoever, I'd have their signature on one of their first performances and whatnot. But yeah, it was a good
All
time.
right.
I enjoyed it.
Nice, man. That's what's up. Now, you make the decision to join the army, right? And that's when life really changed for you. Like that's when you became an adult, basically. And life started for you. Why join the army?
Oh man, I'd love to say, there's this history. I actually found out that I had two uncles that I didn't really know, one by marriage, one by blood, that served in the army. I didn't really know this growing up. Nobody ever talked about it. This is, these are Vietnam guys, but nobody ever talked about it or anything like that. So it wasn't something where like, oh man, I saw these pictures and these war heroes and that motivated me. It really wasn't. And I'll give you an exclusive here. I don't think I've talked about this publicly, but
Hey, all
the
right.
the army wasn't my first choice. I actually tried to enlist into the Air Force. I actually went to the Air Force. Uh, I had it in my mind that I wanted to be a fighter pilot. Like that was what I wanted to do. Which I'm sure when anybody thinks of the Air Force, they're like fighter pilot. Like, I'm sure I'm so original, right? The first guy to walk in and be like, I want to be a fighter pilot. You're welcome. I'm here. So I walked in and I learned very quickly that there was a lot of discriminating factors against me ever being a fighter pilot. At the time, I wore glasses and I had braces and a bunch of different things. And stupid me, I filled out they give you a little questionnaire and I filled it out honestly. And they're like, have you ever taken medication? I was like, yep, done that. Like, ever been into trouble with the delinquency? Yep, done that. Like, I had glasses. The guy just looked at it. He's like, laughs. He's like, no, no, like, not even. We're not even going to take the next step. No, thank you very much for your time. We're good. And I was like, oh, okay. And I was kind of all, butthurt about it. And like, well, screw you guys. I didn't want to be in your stupid club anyway. And I walked out the door, and basically, like, the next door in the hallway was the army door. And I just walked in there, and I was like, "Can I be in the army?" And they're like, like, you in trouble with the law?" I was like, "No." "You do drugs?" Like, "No." "Yeah, man, sign here." Like, I was like, all right, cool. And then filled out the stuff and I took the ASVAB and I actually scored really well. I think there's like 200 and at the time what it was, like 249 jobs in the army. And I think I qualified for like 230 of them. Like it was a ridiculous number of jobs. Like the only ones I remember reading like which ones don't I qualify for? And it was like something to do with like radiation, nuclear something, whatever. And I was like, yeah, I didn't want to do that anyway. But stupid me, I thought it'd be cool to join the infantry. I said, I qualify for all these amazing jobs with all these career opportunities and things that you could learn and skills. And I said, nah, man, I want to play with guns and blow up shit and jump out of airplanes. And um, yeah, I immediately I saw like all the pamphlets. I saw infantry, and I was like, oh man, these guys learn every weapon system, and they learn explosives, and they do all this, and then I saw the airborne, the guy in the parachute, and I was like, oh, I want to do that. I want to do that. And he was like, well, we can get you airborne infantry. You can package that deal and whatever. I was like, yes, yes, I want to do that. And so yeah, that's how I ended up in the army. I mean, really, it's no better story than that.
All right, man. So, because I know a little bit about your history, I'm going to fast forward through some stuff because I got one burning question right now. You get through Army basic training, you get through your AIT. Your first assignment is overseas.
Mhm.
How in the hell did you manage to not get anybody pregnant during that time period? That's what I want to know. Cause tell everybody where you were stationed at. Cause there has to when I hear of this location, I think gorgeous women.
Yeah. So, like you said, I went to Fort Benning, Georgia. I did my basic there, my AIT, also my airborne school. And straight out of airborne school, I get assigned to the 173rd Airborne Brigade, which is located in Vicenza, Italy. It's northern Italy, about 40-ish minutes from Venice. And even the drill sergeants, when they found out what my orders were pissed at me. I got smoked because of getting orders to Italy. Because at the time, and I heard was like, that's the dream assignment. That is, there is no place on earth an airborne infantryman would rather serve at than 173rd because you're in Italy, you're overseas, it's gorgeous, the women, the food, the location. Also, when I joined, Italy hadn't joined the whole euro yet. They were still using the lira, And like when you would transfer American dollars to lira, like we were super wealthy, like super wealthy, like rent out the club. All the women were all over the guys, super wealthy. Of course, like I think it was like 3 months after I got there, they switched to euro, and we were dirt poor. Like it was better to spend your money as dollars than it was to switch to euro at that time. And no more wild parties after that. So I missed out on a lot of the fun there. But yeah, no, it was incredible, man. I've been very fortunate to travel the world and be around and go all over Europe and really around the world. I mean, South America and a bunch of other places. And but Italy just has something about it. It has
Hmm.
everything. It has absolutely everything. If we've had this conversation, man. If I hit the lotto, it'd be pop up, sell everything, and we're buying a villa in Italy. I'd have my own little vineyard, and we just enjoy. That'd be it.
Hey, there's a question in the chat from Kaz. Kaz said they actually jumped into Iraq, right?
That is correct. In March of 2003, the unit 173rd jumped into Bashir. It was Bashir drop zone in northern Iraq. That
Were
was
you a part of that unit?
I was at the time, and that is something that there's a bit of controversy. So for army guys, there's a bit of controversy because we all got our combat parachute wings. You get the little mustard stains that shows that you jumped into an active combat zone, kind of like they did in D-Day and Vietnam and things. And among those in the know, there's a little consternation about it because it's like, well, there was like elite special forces that cleared the landing zone, so it wasn't like you were jumping into like gunfire or nothing. But I mean, the fact is, we were invading a country. Whether or not the drop zone was hot or cleared doesn't change the fact that we're an invading force in an unfriendly country. And they yeah, it was the first and largest airborne operation since D-Day. So it was an honor to be with those guys for sure.
Okay. So you make it over to Italy. You, as far as you know, don't happen to get any chicks pregnant while you're there, which is statistically that's just
I
baffling
mean,
to
I
me.
never said that, but sure, okay.
All right, and then you get on a combat deployment, and a bit of the unthinkable happens. So, you are a Purple Heart recipient. Um, can you share with us how you managed to? I don't know if "earned" is the right word, right, or the right phrase, but how you got your Purple Heart.
Yeah. So to be clear, this wasn't the Iraq tour. This was my second combat tour, which was in Afghanistan. And yeah, I was about 6 months into a year-long deployment. We had been doing, combat operations as we always do. This was just one time that the enemy kind of got the drop on us. We'd been doing without speaking too much classified information. We've been doing air assault missions. We come in helicopters and uh, search and seizures and look for bad guys. And uh, this was the last day we were going to be doing it, and the enemy kind of got the leg on us. We got a spot. We came in. As soon as we hit the ground, there was an ambush waiting for us, and they had the high ground. So, initially they shot me. They first shot a buddy of mine, and then in the process of me trying to get to him and render him aid and things, they shot me. And fortunately for us, we're the better trained fighting force, and they might have had the high ground, but we had the superior tactics, weapons. Also had Apaches on standby, so that was very helpful. Thanks to the Apache guys, and yeah, my team did what they had to do after I'd been wounded and suppressed the enemy. They got me and the other guy out of there, and yeah, I earned is a weird word for the Purple Heart, but I did receive one. Uh, and yeah, I was shot 5 times. I got shot through my bicep, through my right shoulder, through the hand, and then twice. Once in the chest, right through my heart actually, and one in the gut. The two that hit me in the chest didn't penetrate my body armor, but the damage was just as severe because I had shattered all the ribs, and collapsed my lungs. So that didn't help things, but very lucky to have the body armor that I had because I was hit with 7.62 armor piercing rounds. And we had just gotten these new plates, these dragon skin armor plates, like maybe a month or two earlier that protect against armor piercing rounds. So had I been wearing the old plates, that thing would have went right through me like butter. So very fortunate that way. And yeah, I spent the next 2 years of my life at Walter Reed Army Medical Center. I had 44 surgeries over those 2 years, hundreds of hours of physical therapy, occupational therapy. Died twice. I had to be brought back twice, and then yeah, eventually got medically retired. So yeah.
Now, dude, first of all, thank you for sharing that. And I wanted to lead up to that because before you became a family man, that's one of the titles that you have now. You went through a freaking journey to get to that point. Uh, Kind of talk about where your headspace was at, man. You went from being man, a young, healthy guy
Mhm.
to someone who's now has physical disabilities that change the way you operate a bit. How was your headspace, kind of during that time before you became, a family and met your wife?
Yeah, God bless the people that work at the hospitals and all the staff and because the doctors, the nurses, the surgeons, the physical therapists, all of them were incredible. And as far as my physical health goes, they were money. They were on the ball. They took me through the journey and there were options and things um it was an incredible ride and what they were able to kind of put me back together. I really, the initial prognosis was I was going to lose both my arms. The damage was too severe. And then I healed a bit. And then they said, okay, well, you're only going to lose one arm. And then I healed a bit. And well, you're going to keep your arms, but they're not going to be very useful. They're going to be all damaged. And just really lucky to have people fighting for me and pushing me and to get me where I was. That being said, this was 2005. And at that time, the number of guys that were coming through that hospital every day were in like the tens of thousands. These guys were coming in with a fury. The busloads of guys I would remember coming in with injuries, and so the focus had to be the physical health. Right, we have to patch these guys up, move them on, patch them up, move them on, patch them up, move them on. And especially at that time, PTSD wasn't something that was really widely understood or talked about. So now they're a lot better. They're a lot better at screening and providing mental health care and doing these things. But at that time, it was just like, can you walk? Move along. Can you walk? Move along. And it was just pumping us through. And so, I spent 2 years really focused on my physical health recovery that eventually I remember like one day they just slid this paper in front of me and they're like, hey, sign this. I was like, all right, cool. Like, all right, great. You are no longer in the US military service. You are now medically retired. Sergeant, congratulations. Go live your life. And I was like, wait, what? And I was showed the door. And so the next couple years after that, I retired in 2007. I'm a 24-year-old disabled veteran. And like you said, going from a guy who was the pinnacle of physical fitness and health, I maxed out my PT score. I was, soldier of the month for sheer physical fitness alone. At was if we're at 35,000 feet altitude in the mountains, I'm running a 12-minute 2 mile, because of course we test things like that while we're in combat. Who doesn't? And so, I was this I was cocky. And I mean, being in the infantry, like that's part of the deal. Like you have to believe you're bulletproof. You have to believe you are God's gift to the world. Because of the things we do, you just have to be like you have to believe that. You have to drink that Kool-Aid. And so to go from that to I couldn't wipe my own ass in the blink of an eye was very humbling and very challenged a lot of the way I saw myself. And of course, like anybody else, I went through the woe is me period. I went through obviously a ton of survivor's guilt because there's other guys that didn't even make it back from deployments. And so it was just wild, like my emotions and my mentality just wildly swinging. I'm grateful to be alive. I'm so lucky to be alive. And then, but it's not fair. My life's ruined, and oh, I'll never play video games again because my hands ain't gonna work. And like, so it's just wild all over the place. And so what happened is when they medically retired me and they said, all right, go go live your best life. Like I bought a house in the woods in Pennsylvania in the mountains where I didn't have any neighbors and I just wanted to be left alone. And I kind of spiraled, man. A couple years there. I went to kind of a bad place, a dark place, and uh was very fortunate that I had my wife by my side and there and helping me as best as she could. She had no idea how to help me, but she was there and I knew she was there, and that kept me going for long enough. And then just really fortunate to meet the right people at the right time and get involved in organizations like the Warrior Project and things like that that really helped, bring me out of what I was going through, get me around other guys, and put me on the right path to where eventually I could be here now.
At what point did your wife come into the picture during your injury process? Talk
Yeah.
about that for a bit.
Sure, sure. Yeah, a lot of people always, they'll thank my wife, like, "Oh my God, I can't believe you married a soldier, and it's so hard." And she always is like, "Well, I didn't know him when he was like in." So when I got injured, I was, like I said, I was in Walter Reed Army Medical Center, that's in Washington D.C. And a couple months into my recovery, once I can move around again and I could kind of, get around. Um, it was just, it's a very long story, but the very short version of it is that I decided to go to the mall, which I wasn't supposed to leave the hospital grounds, but me and rules don't really go well together. So, I said, "Hey doc, I'm gonna go for a walk around the hospital grounds." I'm like, "All right, don't go far." Hopped in a cab, went to the mall, and I'm dating myself here, but I wanted to get CDs. I wanted to go get CDs, listen to some music, and do my thing. And went to the mall and went to a CD store, and this beautiful girl was there, and I kind of got pushed into talking to her, and I was terrible at it. I was hopped up on some painkillers, and I looked like death. I think I had one arm was still in a cast, one arm was still in a sling. I'd lost like 75 pounds of muscle, so I was like all hollowed out and like black dark circles under my eyes. And I think my opening line was, "Hey, do you come here often?" Um, yeah, yeah. I was not with it. I'd lost a step since since my days in Italy, and she barely spoke English. And luckily, I was just rusty enough in Spanish to communicate with her, and I kind of wowed her with my dazzling personality, as you well know. And yeah, just through sheer luck and good circumstances, we set a date to go out, and the rest is history, man. We really, it's funny because she was actually visiting the country at that point. She was visiting family, and she was only here for a week. And so I thought I kind of struck out because the first thing I asked her was, or she told me the first thing was, "I don't speak English." And I'm like, all right, I mean, who doesn't speak English? Whatever. I was like, all right, strike one. I get it. You're not interested. I was like, well, hey, how about you give me your phone number? We can maybe, just chit chat, whatever. And oh, I don't have a phone number. And I'm like, all right, strike
Strike
two.
two.
Okay. I was like, well, why don't we get together this weekend? Blah, blah, blah. It was like, I think it was like Monday or Tuesday. He's like, let's get together this weekend, go out. Oh, on Friday, I'm going back to my home country. And I'm like, all right, okay, I get it. You want nothing to do with me. Sure, sure, sure. And then, yeah, just as kind of a Hail Mary, I was like, well, let's go out tonight then. Because I mean, who doesn't go out on like a Monday night in in DC? And so she said, yeah. And we went out and we ended up having such a good time that we saw each other every day. And it turned out to be true. She wasn't from this country. She didn't speak the language very well, and she didn't have a cell phone because she wasn't from the country. And but we hung out every day. We hung out every day. We ate meals together. We hung out. I think we went to the movies, and she just kept me company. She once she understood where I was and what I was going through, and she couldn't believe that I was alone. She's like, "You don't have family or anything that are here at the hospital with you?" And I was like, "Eh, it's always been just me for the longest as I can remember." And she came from a big family. She was one of 9 kids, and so she just couldn't believe that I was going through this by myself. And I guess she took pity on me, and so she visited me, every day at the hospital. She would go to my appointments with me. We just hung out and we talked, and it was awesome. And I really enjoyed spending time with her. And I didn't, I've dated a bunch of women. I mean, I was in Italy. I was infantry. I was in Italy. I was airborne. I dated a lot of women, and but there was just something different about her, something very different about her, and she left, and we kept in touch, and we would email and phone call, and then a couple months later, she came back. She stayed for a couple weeks, and I had another surgery, and so she wanted to be there to have somebody to have, support me, and then she went back again, and then I think it was like my birthday was coming up, and then she calls me crying. She's like, "I wanted to come up to you for your birthday," and blah blah blah. But my dad, at this point, we were kind of like really dating. At that point, we were just kind of steady. And she's crying, and she's like, "Oh, my dad said I can't come." He took my passport, and he's like, "I can't come." And I started to get like, I was getting that like spammy catfishing vibe where I'm like, "Oh, how much do I have to pay to get your dad to let you come to the States?" And she's, I didn't say that, of course, God forbid I didn't say that. But I was just like, "Oh, really? Okay, well, that's too bad. Like, is there anything I can do just to see?" Like, she goes, "Well, no. I mean, he said like he's not gonna, let me go to the States to see some guy that he's never even met." I was like, "Oh, is that it?" And she's like, "Yeah, she's like, I've never brought a guy home before. I'd never introduced." I said, "I'll tell you what, tell your dad I'm on my way." And she's like, "What?" I said, "Yeah." And so I got a passport. I got like the express delivery. I think it was like 2 weeks. And I booked a flight. And I remember I'm still technically in the military, although I'm in the hospital. So I told the staff, I said, "Listen, I have to go home. There's a funeral in Pennsylvania I have to go to." And they're like, "Okay, but like, yeah, make sure it's a weekend pass. Go straight there, come straight back. Don't mess around." "Oh, of course, absolutely not." Got in a cab, went to the airport, flew to El Salvador, where my wife's from, spent the weekend there, met her folks, met her family, went to the beach, got really tan. By the way, this is like November. No, this is January. I got really like red. Like I got burnt. I got burnt. Apparently my medication did not mix well with the sun. So I got
Uh-huh.
like crispy burnt and came back from Pennsylvania in January, beat red. And they're like, "So, wedding, huh?" I was like, "Yes." Or not wedding, funeral. Funeral. Yes, yes. I was very sunny at the funeral. But yeah, and kind of got her parents' blessing to continue seeing her, and she came up for my birthday, and then it was I think within oh my God, 5 6 months of us, talking and dating and seeing each other a couple times, and finally I was like, "You know what? Screw this, man. I know the real thing when I see the real thing," and I proposed. And she thought I was crazy. She was finishing up college in El Salvador. She only had like one more semester or something like that to go, and she's like, "No, I can't do that." And I was like, "No, you don't understand. Like this got to happen. This is gonna happen. This got to happen." And we were crazy, and we did it. And I think 3 months later, we were married, and we've been together ever since. That's going on 15, 16 years. So
The part that I want to highlight, man, and I really hope that somebody that watches this can really glean something from that, is that you went through this injury. You went through this life changing moment that had further ripples down the line. All right. And you didn't let that deter you from, even though you had your going to the woods moment, you know what I'm saying? Like,
mhm.
sprinkled through there. You didn't let that really change, your actions as far as like approaching people. This girl that caught your eye, because by all accounts, like y'all are two separate lives.
Yeah,
Not the same citizen. She's way more prettier than you are. Uh,
way more, way more, way out of
and
my league, way out of my league.
and and you still had enough in there to shoot your shot.
Yeah.
Whatever the reason was, you shot your shot.
Yeah. I mean, I
And
was pretty high on painkillers. I mean, my that that part of the brain goes, "Oh, this is a bad idea." Like that guy was sleeping. He was asleep at the wheel. Even I'll be honest, even in my cockiest airborne infantry way, rocking the maybe if I'm in like full class A's dress uniform, maybe I would have approached her like, like, "Yeah, you want some of this?" But there's no way in my rational mind that I could have ever had the balls to talk to someone as gorgeous as my wife. I thought she was one of the most beautiful women I'd ever seen, and that's coming from a guy who lived in Italy for years. And yeah, so I was just really, it was a really, like you said, two planets just kind of crossing, everything just lined up, and yeah, it was very lucky. I was just lucky. That's all.
So y'all met, y'all got married somewhere in your 20s, if I understand the timeline right. She came from a large family. Were you from a large family, mixed, kind of
No.
small?
No, no, not at all. Like I said, single mom. Uh, my mom had another son years later. I was, I me and him might have crossed paths for like maybe 2 years, because he was born when I was like 11. So, so I saw him for the first, 3, 4 years, and then I was gone. So in all intents and purposes, in my head, I grew up an only child, and even though I do have, and then my dad turned out to have, surprise, surprise, two other kids from two other women. So I do have like half siblings out there, but nobody that like I grew up with. And so really, I look at my life as kind of a single child home. I'm close with my mom's other son, my half brother. Matthew. I'm close to him now. We've built a relationship, but the other two are, I don't know where the hell they are. But that's not true. They're good people. But it's one of those things that, yeah, like it I we couldn't be more opposite, me and my wife, in how she was raised, and mom and dad together forever, and 9 kids, and they super supportive of each other. Like, these people talk all the time. My wife is not on the phone at any point in the day talking to one of her 9 siblings. So yeah, but it's good. It's good for me to learn from that kind of a family, and to see what I only thought was, I only saw that kind of stuff on TV growing up. So it's cool to see it in real life.
All right. I've learned it's not safe to assume that just because two people come together that there's going to be kids down the line. Did you guys have that talk before y'all got married or after?
There's a bit, when you've been together long enough, stories start to change a bit.
Uh huh. This
So
is
I
true.
I like to I like to say that I was pretty clear early on that I wanted kids, and my wife swears that from early on she had made it clear she was not interested in kids. Although I don't recall these conversations happening, but that's okay. We were married for 10 years before we finally decided to have kids. It was something, kids was always something I wanted. Again, growing up, I think an only child and not having that complete family unit, it felt like something I wanted, and that's something in my control to complete. Have husband, wife, child. Like, that was within my realm. I can't make my mommy and daddy be together, but like, that's something I could control, and so it's something that I've always wanted. And my wife, very much the opposite. Growing up, she was the second oldest of 9, so she grew up her whole life being mom. She was always taking care of her younger siblings. To this day, she's still taking care of her younger siblings. So that was never something that was in her frame of mind to do, was to have kids. So, a couple years into the relationship, in the marriage, that we realized, oh shit, we're on opposite sides of this thing. And but I also never wanted to push her something to do that, because I know, if I did, then she could resent me. She could resent having kids and all these things. And so, for a long time, it was like, "Are you ready? Maybe, no, kind of, yeah, maybe." And we just kind of went back and forth on it. And it was about 10 years into our marriage that we kind of sat down and said, "Hey, man, let's like we. What are the reasons? She didn't want kids, and she wanted to travel, and she wanted to have a career, and she wanted to have normalcy. And she grew up kind of poor because, right, everything was stretched so thin, and she wanted to have a bank account, have build a life for herself. And then we talked about it. I'm like, well, we've kind of done all those things. We were going on vacations every year to different countries. We had we both had good jobs. We were established. We knew we've been together for 10 years, right? So it wasn't like, oh, we have a kid and now we're fighting and then we split up. And so we kind of ticked off all the boxes, and we're like, all right, well, what's the next great adventure? And we both were like, all right, let's do this. We decided to have a son or have a child, and literally like we decided, and I think it was like 2 months later we were pregnant. So it was very much a planned child. We decided, the very adult thing to like, we want to have a kid, and this is something that at this point in our lives means something. We're not getting younger, and but we're still young enough that we can be active in this child's life. We don't need, I don't need a wheelchair to get around to chase my kid. But yeah, so it was weird because like it was at one point it was very much not on the table, and then there was a clear point where I was like, all right, let's do this. Let's make this decision to do this, and yeah, I mean we're it did not it I feel for those couples out there that it takes a while to get pregnant, things like that. It did not take I mean, I don't want to gross out your audience. I don't want to gross out your audience, but I know exactly where she got pregnant. Like that's how clear it is in my mind. I know exactly where the LA baby. But anyway, we had a nice little trip. But no, yeah, it was definitely, decided upon, and we're happy we made the decision.
It's hard to play the what if game, but do you think the marriage could have survived had she said, I'm very clear on this. I don't want to have a child. I don't want to be pregnant.
Yeah, we had I can be honest about that. We had the conversation, and we realized, look, no matter how much we loved each other, we both wanted the other person to be happy. So at no point did I ever, and this is why I never forced or pushed the issue. Like, of course we're going to broach the topic and we're going to talk about it, but I never was like, we should do this, we should do this, we should do this, because I don't want her to have that regret. And from her position, she didn't want me to get into a position where, okay, I won't have kids, and now that's all I regret in my life. And so we did get into a conversation pretty close to the time. No, I shouldn't say that because it sounds like, well, we're going to divorce if we don't have kids, and then we had kids. That's not this coincidental, those two things. But we did talk about it, and that if kids weren't on the table in the future, is this something that you know she knew I wanted kids, and so she would want me to go off and do that and be happy that way if she couldn't fulfill the thing that was most important to me, and then I knew she didn't want the kids, and then she should be with somebody who doesn't want to have kids, right? They should be happy in doing that. And yeah, there's a good chance. I can't say, for certain, but there's a good chance that if we decided that kids weren't in both of our futures, that we were adult enough to say that maybe we shouldn't, not because we don't love each other, not because we don't want to be together, but maybe it's better for us to be complete people, that we should split up.
All right. Um, so y'all got one. We ain't getting no younger. Any chance of another one out there, brother?
You can't say no for sure. Um, there was a time, there's a different timeline out there. You know me, I love the multiverse. There's a universe out there where we have three or four or five, whatever. Um, you know, I really do feel like we're doing a great job with the one we have. And when you're pitching a perfect game, do you really want to screw that up? I don't know. If it were to happen, it would happen very soon. It would have to be, we both, biologically speaking, know that, like, we don't want to be that parent that they have a 5-year old and it's like, oh, look at your grandson. And it's like, no, that's my son. Like, we don't want to be those parents. So we said, I'm 37 now, and we both kind of set like a cutoff at like 39, 40. We wouldn't try to have kids after that. So we're bumping up against that timeline. So, it's something that we've talked about. We're still not one way or the other about it. I can happily say that if we only end up having one, that he's very loved. We love him so much, and that I can be fulfilled in that I have my son, and that yeah, I don't need more kids to feel complete. I'm very fortunate that way, but we'll see. You never know.
Um, so Logan's very young now, man. When he gets older, he's gonna have all different kinds of ideas about what he thinks he wants to do and everything like that. Your story is out there, man. It's out there through various different nonprofits, through social media and YouTube. And it's a story that should be out there to inspire, others, as they're kind of coming along their journey. Should something similar to them happen, if your son comes to you and tells you, "Dad, I want to be infantry. I want to be in the army," what's your words to him? A 16-year-old Logan trying to figure out his way in the world.
Oh man, me and my wife have talked about this, and we said one way or another, and this is military or not. You know, I want my son to be able to be what he wants to be, right? What he's passionate about. I think that the key to life is finding what you're passionate about, and then doing that in a way that can get you money to survive, because the rest of it can work itself out. But as long as you're happy doing what you're doing and you're getting paid to do it, you're you're light years ahead of a lot of people out there. So if my son wanted to be a garbage man, then I'm all for it. If whatever it is he wanted to be, I would want him to try to be the best at it. I'm hyper competitive, that. So if you're gonna be the garbage man, man, be the best damn garbage man this world has ever seen. Want them to sing songs about you. Um, and whatever he chooses to do, we'll support him. We will guide him. We will try and support him and give him what he needs. As far as the military, I'm not against him joining the military. You know, my advice would be don't do it just because I did it, right? And you want to live up to some expectation. That's not a reason to do it. And if you do want to do it for you, don't do infantry. Like, just that, not because there's anything wrong with it, just because I've seen the other side of it, and as much as I loved it and I wanted to make a career out of it, I see so many guys leave the field and they're no better for it after the fact. You end up in some private security or working as a contractor. I know a lot of guys got into construction for some reason. You don't see a lot of guys coming out and be like, "Oh, this helped my career and established me in life." So my advice would be, and the three of my wife's youngest siblings, uh, one is already in the Air Force, and the other two are about to join. They've already got sworn in and everything. And that was my advice to them. Like, the military is great, man. It can establish you so well. You get an education, you get experience, you get benefits, you get benefits for the rest of your life. There's so many good things about it, but be smart about it. Use it. Don't let the military use you. You use the military. And so get your education, get your certifications, pick a job field that you see you feel strongly about. Like if you're into cars, go and be a mechanic. If you're into food, go and be a cook. Whatever it is, if you want to be a business administrator, go in and work the S shops, and do acquisitions and whatnot. Whatever it is, but go into a field that interests you, and do something that when you get out has a potential that you now have a leg up on everybody else, where they were struggling to get education that they're still paying for. You already got that education. Where they have no job experience, you've already been doing it for a couple of years, so you're a leg ahead of everybody out there. So as far as the military, if he wanted to do that, I'm never going to push him to do it. I'm never going to suggest he does it. If he came to me with it, then we'd sit down and talk about it and why he wants to do it and what he wants to get out of it. And I would just try to help him pick something that he's passionate about, and something that maybe we can see a future for him. But yeah, I wouldn't talk him out of it or into it one way or another.
Okay. Now, something that you're passionate about, and I like to highlight this real quick. Your hat and your shirt, it says CQ. You don't just wear that because you're vain. You are into pop culture, and you have a show called Pop Culture Warrior. Your son's young, all right? If he's not into pop culture like you, how much is that going to hurt your wee little heart?
Yeah, that one's gonna sting a bit. Like if he's a super jock, or just someone who's into, like, I don't know, poetry. Not that there's anything wrong with it, just that, like, the fact that he wouldn't choose superheroes and comic books and action figures. Me and him are already so different in so many ways. obviously his bedroom, I have adorned it with superheroes and these things, and I'm starting to feel like subconsciously it's putting the seeds of like he's not gonna like it as he grows up, right? Because it's like I'm choosing it for him, and I already regret so many things about it. But like me growing up, it was all about action figures and creating these things and comic books. And yes, he's only 4, but he shows no interest in that stuff. Like for him, it's a lot of trains. He loves trains, which I'm okay, cool, man. Like, do you? I've never had a fascination with trains. He loves trains and cars and very creative things, Play-Doh and Legos and things like that. But he's more mechanically inclined. I watch it. He's 4. He just turned 4. And I've caught him on numerous occasions on YouTube watching train breakdowns where they describe the parts and pieces and like how the brake systems work and like all these like I'm bored watching it, and he's super into that stuff. We took him to a train museum, and his head damn near came off his shoulders. He was so excited. So already I can see the writing on the wall is that he's not going to be into superheroes and things. Probably maybe not even video games at all. I don't know, but it will hurt. I will weep privately inside internally. I will not let him know that I'm hurting. But yeah, it would be a bummer, man, because I'd love to be able to share that kind of stuff with him, but I'm never gonna force him into it. It's got to be something you love just for the sake that you love it.
Okay, well, hey, CQ, man, we are coming up here on our time. That hour goes by fast, man. There's always so much that I feel like as people start talking, I'm like, ooh, I like to know about this, or ooh, I think that this will be good to get this person to kind of talk about this. But to be respectful of your time and the people that are going to watch or listen's time. We're going to wrap this up, man. But before we go, since you are online and everything like that, and you talked about, passion. One of your passion projects is your show. Talk about your show and where people can find you at. If somebody watched this and they maybe just want to have questions about, other things or being in the military or warrior support, where can people find you online at?
Sure. Yeah. So the show is called Pop Culture Warrior. It is a weekly live, very much like this show. It's Tuesday nights, 8 to 10. We talk about everything from movies, TV, video games, toys, collectibles, a bunch of silly stuff. Sometimes we'll play games with the audience. Super interactive, just like your show. We talk to the audience and interact with them. And then one of my favorite parts is just like this, the second hour of the show. I usually bring on a special guest and we talk. And we've been very fortunate, very, very fortunate to have some I hate to say like celebrities, but let's just say people that you've heard their name, people you've seen before. We had Agent Coulson from the Avengers, Clark Gregg. We've had comedian Louis Anderson. We've had director of the recent movie The Outpost, Rod Lurie, actor from Warehouse 13, Eddie McClintock. Pedro from Napoleon Dynamite was just on. Efren Ramirez, Colin Mockery from Whose Line Is It Anyway? So it's a wide range of celebrities and personalities that we bring on. I love talking to everyone in the entertainment industry because they have such amazing histories and backstories and insights that we, as the typical moviegoer, TV watcher, don't get to understand and know about behind the scenes. So we have actors, directors, comedians, writers, producers. Not next week, the week after, we have an amazing voiceover artist, Rob Paulson, the guy who did Pinky and the Brain and the Animaniacs. He's coming on to talk about his experience as a voiceover artist and actor. So we've got guys coming on next month that do video games. They do voices for video games. We've had video game producers and creators. So it's a fun show. It's an absolutely fun show. So you can find us on Facebook, Pop Culture Warrior. I just started a new YouTube channel where I capture, for those that just want to see the interview and don't want to hear me babble on about nonsense stuff. YouTube.com/PCW Rewind is the YouTube channel where you can see just the interviews. And also I used to perform stand-up comedy before COVID. So I have comedy clips up there. Interviews like this show, I'll clip the interviews and post them up there on the channel. So you might see this episode in the future on the channel. You can find me on was it Instagram, Twitter, all the socials, man. Jesus, all the socials. Just look for Pop Culture Warrior. It's one show on a network of shows called WTF Nation Radio. They're all veteran owned, veteran operated, made by veteran for veteran shows. The Monday edition, Sergeant Time, Friday Night Freedom, all that good stuff. Bringing more and more shows all the time. It does a ton of cool stuff. And yeah, it's great, man. I love the audience. We do giveaways. In fact, you can see I got a bunch of boxes out here with a bunch of random stuff in it because we do giveaways on the show. I love to spoil my audience and engage with my audience. We do have a Patreon page because that's what everybody's doing now for exclusive giveaways and fun stuff and videos and things like that. So that's just got launched. So yeah, there's tons of ways to interact with the show and yeah, I love my audience. I see a few names that I recognize. Kaz, I see you out there, man. Love you, brother. And so yeah, so it's great, man. It's been fun, and thank you for having me. This is part one. I hope I'll get to come back and we can really dive into some more good stuff now that we've covered all the basics.
Rock on. Well, hey, CQ, bleh, stand by one. I'm going to close out the show. All right, man. Don't go anywhere. All right. So that was my main man, CQ. There's so much other stuff that we can dive into, man. CQ and I, we chop it up all the time about life and things like that. One of the things that we didn't quite touch on in here is that the he's a huge advocate for veterans and things, and really getting veterans the resources that they need post military service. And he's done a lot in that very selflessly, very well, and he doesn't like to take any credit for anything, but it's one of the things that I greatly appreciate that he does as well. So that was my man CQ. I'm King. This has been Chats with Dads. Tune in next Wednesday as I have somebody. I think I made a mistake of saying who I was going to bring on this Wednesday and then bring that person on. So I'm not going to announce that anymore. Thanks for tuning in.